A billionaire widow invited her gardener as a joke to mock him, but when he arrived, everyone was left in shock. "You're joking, right? Inviting the gardener to my charity gala?" Vivian's voice cut through the veranda air like a sharp blade. She adjusted the diamond necklace on her neck, an anniversary gift from her late husband worth more than most houses in town, and let out a laugh that made her two friends laugh along. "I'm serious," Vivian continued, pointing with her champagne glass at the black man trimming the bushes on the other side of the garden. "Imagine him among my guests. All those executives, celebrities, politicians, and the gardener standing in the corner holding a glass like he's never seen crystal in his life." On the other side of the immaculate lawn of the mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, Nathan continued his work in silence. At 52 years old, he had steady hands, a straight back, and a gaze that seemed to see beyond things. He had worked for Vivian for almost 2 years, since she became widowed from oil magnate Richard Ashworth. Patricia crossed her legs and took a long sip of champagne. "You're cruel, Vivian. But I love it." "Cruel?" Vivian pretended to be offended, placing her hand on her chest. "I'm being generous. He would never set foot in an event like this in his life. I'm giving him a unique experience. Consider it charity." The three laughed loudly. The sound echoed through the garden, reaching where Nathan worked. Monica, the third friend, leaned forward with eyes gleaming with malice. "What if he refuses?" "People like him don't refuse anything," Vivian replied with contempt. "They need the money. They need the job. I'll tell him it's a special invitation, an honor. He'll accept, and we'll have fun all night watching him lost among real people." Patricia pointed discreetly at Nathan. "Look at how he works. Bent over all day. He's probably never worn a suit in his life." "If he even owns one," Monica added. Vivian smiled. "I bet he'll show up in those same khaki pants he wears every day. Maybe a slightly less wrinkled shirt. It'll be hilarious." What none of them realized was that Nathan could hear every word. The wind carried their voices directly to where he worked. Every laugh. Every insult. Every word of contempt. His hands continued pruning the roses without trembling. His face didn't change. He showed no anger, no hurt. But something in his eyes ignited, not humiliation. Something deeper. Something the women on the veranda would never recognize because they had never seen true strength up close. Nathan cut a dry branch with surgical precision. He had heard things like this before. Many times. In another time, in another life. Words that tried to diminish him. Looks that tried to erase him. But he was still standing. He always stayed standing. Later that afternoon, when the sun began to set and painted the sky orange over the gardens, Vivian descended the veranda steps and walked toward Nathan. Her heels sank slightly into the grass. She hated that, but she wanted to see his reaction up close. Nathan stood up slowly, wiping his hands on his work pants. Even dirty with soil, there was something about him that didn't match the job. His posture was too straight. His gaze, too direct. Vivian had never noticed this before. "Nathan," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I have a special proposal for you." "Yes, Mrs. Ashworth." His voice was calm, deep, unhurried. This irritated Vivian for some reason she couldn't explain. "My charity gala is on Saturday. 300 guests. The elite of New York and Connecticut. Businessmen, artists, people who actually matter in this country." She paused dramatically, savoring the moment. "And I would like you to come." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. His dark eyes met hers without looking away. Without blinking. His face remained completely calm, impossible to read. "As a guest?" he asked. "As my special guest," she emphasized, barely able to hide her satisfied smile. "After all, you take such good care of my garden. You deserve a different night. A night to see how it is on the other side." From the veranda, Patricia and Monica watched the scene with hands over their mouths, already laughing softly in anticipation. Nathan nodded slowly. "Just once. I appreciate the invitation, Mrs. Ashworth. So you'll come?" "I'll be there." The answer was so simple, so devoid of exaggerated gratitude or nervousness, that Vivian frowned slightly. She expected him to stutter. To ask what to wear. To show some sign of inadequacy, of inferiority. To thank her repeatedly for the honor of attending. But Nathan simply returned to work, as if she had asked about the weather forecast. Vivian stood there for a second, not knowing how to react. Then she spun on her heels and returned to her friends, her brow still furrowed. "Strange," she murmured as she sat down. "What did he say?" Patricia asked eagerly, leaning forward. "He accepted. But he didn't seem impressed. Not at all." Monica shrugged, dismissing the observation. "He probably doesn't understand the size of the event. People like that don't understand these things. They have no sense of the real world." "He probably thinks it's a backyard barbecue," Patricia added, and the three laughed again. Vivian agreed, raising the glass to her lips. But something bothered her. A small feeling, like a pebble in her shoe. Maybe it was the way Nathan looked at her. Not how an employee looks at a boss. Not with submission or gratitude. More like someone who keeps a secret too big to be revealed before the right time. "It doesn't matter," she said aloud, more to herself than to her friends. "Saturday will be unforgettable." That night, after all the lights in the mansion went out and silence took over the property, Nathan entered his small apartment above the garage. The space was simple: a narrow bed, a wooden table, a chair, a small stove. The walls were white and empty. Anyone who entered would think it was the room of someone who had nothing. But there was something that didn't fit with the rest. In the corner, under a gray tarp, was a polished mahogany box with the initials NC engraved in gold on the lid. The box was elegant, antique, clearly expensive. Completely out of place in that humble room. Nathan walked to it slowly. His steps were silent on the wooden floor. He knelt before the box. His fingers touched the lid with a gentleness that contrasted with his calloused hands from working in the earth. Like someone visiting a grave. Like someone touching a memory that hurts. He didn't open it. Not yet. He stayed there for a long moment, breathing slowly, looking at the golden initials. "She wants a joke," he said quietly to himself. "She wants to see the gardener lost among the rich." A shadow of a smile crossed his lips. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knows something others don't know. Let's see who laughs in the end. He stood up and went to the window. From there, he could see the mansion illuminated by the moon. The veranda where they had laughed at him. The garden he tended with his own hands. What Vivian Ashworth didn't know, what no one in that mansion knew, was that Nathan wasn't just a gardener. The mahogany box held a story she could never imagine. And Saturday's gala would be a night that would change everything. The following days passed like any other at the Ashworth mansion. Nathan arrived early, tended the garden, and returned to his apartment at dusk. Vivian barely looked at him, except when she wanted to laugh with her friends. "Have you thought about what you're going to wear, Nathan?" she asked on Wednesday while he was planting tulips near the fountain. "I already have something in mind, Mrs. Ashworth." Patricia, who was visiting, stifled a laugh. "I bet it's that plaid shirt he wears on Sundays." Nathan didn't respond. He just kept working. That night, alone in his apartment, he finally opened the mahogany box. Inside were things that didn't match a gardener's life. A three-piece suit in dark graphite, Italian cut, fine fabric, clearly custom-made. A gold watch with the initials NC engraved on the back. A pair of black leather Oxford shoes, impeccably preserved. And at the bottom, a leather folder with documents and old photographs. Nathan picked up one of the photos. In it, a younger man himself, perhaps 20 years ago, stood in front of an imposing building in Manhattan. He wore a suit similar to the one in the box. Beside him, a gray-haired white man smiled with his arm around his shoulder. On the back of the photo, a handwritten dedication, "To Nathan, my partner, my friend, my brother by choice. Richard." Richard Ashworth. Vivian's late husband. Nathan stared at the photo for a long time. His eyes shimmered with something between longing and pain. "You never told her, did you, Richard?" he murmured. "Never told her who I was. Who we were." He set the photo aside and picked up a yellowed newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Carter and Ashworth, the duo that revolutionized New York real estate." Below, a photo of the two young businessmen, Nathan Carter and Richard Ashworth, shaking hands at the inauguration of their first major project. All of that belonged to another life. A life Nathan chose to leave behind 12 years ago, after a tragedy destroyed his family and he decided to disappear from the world he knew. He closed the folder and picked up the suit. His fingers ran over the fabric like reuniting with an old friend. The next morning, Nathan left early and went to a small tailor shop in downtown Greenwich. The owner, an elderly Italian man named Giuseppe, looked at the suit with expert eyes. "Armani," Giuseppe said, impressed. "Vintage. Late 90s. Perfect cut." "I need it to look like new," Nathan said. Giuseppe nodded slowly. "For when?" "Saturday." The tailor smiled. "I'll make it look like it just came out of the store." Back at the mansion, Vivian was ecstatic with the gala preparations. A team of decorators was transforming the main hall. Flowers arrived in trucks. A giant tent was being set up in the side garden. "It's going to be the night of the year," she said on the phone. 300 people. Press coverage. Everything perfect. She hung up and saw Nathan passing by with a tool cart. "Nathan," she called. He stopped. "Yes, Mrs. Ashworth." "The event starts at 8. Arrive at 7:30. Use the service entrance." "Service entrance?" Vivian smiled coldly. "You're not going to enter through the front door, are you? That would be strange. The guests might think you're someone." Nathan looked at her for a second. Something crossed his face, something Vivian couldn't identify. "As you prefer, Mrs. Ashworth." She waved her hand, dismissing him, and returned to her calls. On Friday night, Nathan picked up the suit from the tailor shop. Giuseppe had done an impeccable job. The fabric shone under the light. The creases were perfect. "Whoever wears this," Giuseppe said, handing over the hanger, "will look like a king." Nathan paid in cash and went home. In the apartment, he placed the suit on the bed and stared at it. Beside it, the gold watch. The polished shoes. The photo of him with Richard. Tomorrow would be the day. Vivian wanted a spectacle. She wanted to see the gardener humiliated in front of her rich guests. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to prove that people like him didn't belong in her world. What she didn't know was that Nathan had already belonged to that world. Had helped build it. Had been the partner of the very man whose money now paid for the diamonds around her neck. Nathan picked up the photo once more. "You told me to take care of her if something happened to you," he said quietly to Richard's image. "And I tried. The only way I knew how. But she never saw me as a person." He placed the photo inside the suit pocket. "Tomorrow she'll see." Saturday arrived with a clear, perfect sky over Greenwich. The Ashworth mansion sparkled like a palace. Golden lights illuminated the gardens. Luxury cars lined up at the entrance. Women in haute couture dresses and men in impeccable tuxedos climbed the front entrance steps. Vivian was radiant. Her red dress cost more than most people earned in a year. She received guests with wide smiles and calculated hugs. "Darling, everything is wonderful," Patricia whispered beside her. "And the gardener? Has he arrived?" Vivian looked at her watch. 8:15. "He's probably lost looking for the service entrance." Monica approached, laughing. "I can't wait to see his outfit." The three exchanged knowing glances. The hall was already full when something began to change. First, it was just a few glances directed at the main entrance. Then, the murmurs. Then, a wave of silence began spreading through the room like water spilled on a table. Vivian frowned. "What's happening?" She turned to look in the same direction as everyone else. And her heart stopped. At the main entrance, not the service entrance, but the front door where only VIP guests entered, stood Nathan. But it wasn't the Nathan she knew. The man walking through the hall wore a graphite Italian-cut suit that seemed to have been sewn onto his body. The white shirt was impeccable. The tie, perfectly aligned. On his wrist, a gold watch gleamed discreetly. The Oxford shoes reflected the chandelier lights. He walked slowly. Not with the hunched posture of someone who works in the dirt, but with a straight spine, open shoulders, chin slightly raised. Like someone who had entered halls like this 1,000 times before. "Who is that man?" someone asked beside Vivian. She couldn't answer. Her mouth was dry. Nathan crossed the hall with a calm that contrasted with the buzz around him. People stepped aside to clear a path. Some smiled at him. Others tried to identify him. An elderly man with white hair stopped talking and widened his eyes. He took a step forward, studying Nathan's face. "Wait," the man said loudly. "I know you." The hall became even quieter. The man approached Nathan. "Nathan?" "Nathan Carter." Nathan stopped and smiled slightly. "Hello, William. It's been a while." William Richardson, one of Wall Street's oldest investors and a personal friend of Richard Ashworth, grabbed Nathan's shoulders with both hands. "My God," William said, his voice choked. "We thought you had died. You disappeared 12 years ago without a trace." Richard was devastated. Murmurs exploded through the hall. Nathan Carter? The Nathan Carter? The founding partner of Ashworth and Carter. The one who built half of Manhattan with Richard? I read about him. He was a genius. Disappeared after his wife and daughter died in that accident. Vivian felt her legs weaken. She leaned on Patricia's arm. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "He's my gardener. My gardener." Nathan finally looked at her. Their eyes met across the crowded hall. He didn't smile with scorn. He showed no anger. He just looked at her with absolute calm. Then he walked toward her. The entire hall watched. "Mrs. Ashworth," Nathan said, his voice deep and clear. "Thank you for the invitation." Vivian opened her mouth, but no sound came out. William approached, still holding Nathan's arm. "Vivian, didn't you know? Nathan and Richard were like brothers. They started the company together in the basement of an apartment in Brooklyn. Everything Richard built was with this man by his side." Patricia and Monica were paralyzed. This is impossible," Vivian finally managed to say. "Why would you be working as a gardener in my house?" Nathan looked at her for a long moment. "Because Richard asked me to." He took something from his jacket pocket. A letter. The envelope was yellowed with time. "Before he died, Richard came to me. He knew I had isolated myself from the world after losing my family. But he asked me a favor." Nathan extended the letter to Vivian. "He asked me to take care of you. To make sure you would be okay." Vivian took the letter with trembling hands. She recognized her husband's handwriting immediately. "I came as a gardener because I didn't want your money. I didn't want recognition. I just wanted to honor the promise I made to my friend." Nathan paused. "But you never saw me as a person. To you, I was just someone to ridicule." Tears began streaming down Vivian's face, smudging her perfect makeup. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know." "No," Nathan said calmly. "You didn't want to know. That's different." The silence in the hall was absolute. William cleared his throat. "Nathan, you should speak. Tell people what really happened. Your story, the company, everything." Nathan shook his head. "I didn't come here for that. I came because I was invited. And now." He looked around the hall, at all the shocked faces. "I think my work here is done." He turned to leave. "Nathan, wait," Vivian called, her voice broken. He stopped but didn't turn around. "Please," she said. "I'm sorry." Nathan stood still for a second. Then, without looking back, he replied, "Forgiveness isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn through your actions." And he walked out through the same front door he had entered, leaving 300 guests in silence and a billionaire widow crying in the middle of her own hall. The news spread like wildfire. The morning after the gala, Nathan Carter's name was everywhere. Newspapers, business websites, social media. The story of the billionaire who disappeared 12 years ago and was found working as a gardener at his former partner's mansion went viral within hours. "The ghost of Wall Street reappears," said one headline. "Nathan Carter, the man who abandoned a fortune to honor a promise," proclaimed another. Reporters surrounded the gates of the Ashworth mansion. Television cameras were parked on the street for days. Everyone wanted to know more about the mysterious man who had shocked Connecticut's elite. Vivian didn't leave the house for a week. Locked in her room, she read Richard's letter dozens of times. Her husband's words pierced her like needles. "Vivian, my love. If you're reading this, it's because I'm already gone. There's something I never told you. Nathan Carter was the brother life gave me. We built everything together. When he lost his wife and daughter in that accident, he also lost the will to live. He disappeared from the world. But I found him. And I asked him to take care of you when I was gone. Not for money. Nathan never wanted money. But because he is the most upright person I've ever known. If he's there, Vivian, treat him well. He deserves it. She sobbed until she had no more tears. How could she have been so blind? So cruel? Richard had left a guardian for her, and she had treated him like garbage. Patricia and Monica vanished. They didn't answer calls. They didn't respond to messages. When the spotlight turned against Vivian, the friends who had laughed by her side disappeared like smoke. Alone, Vivian began to rethink every moment of the past 2 years. Every time she humiliated Nathan. Every joke. Every look of contempt. He heard everything. Endured everything. And still, he kept taking care of her. Of her garden. Of the promise he made to his friend. 3 weeks after the gala, Vivian finally found the courage to go out. She discovered where Nathan was living, a small apartment in New Haven. Simple. Modest. Nothing like the life he could have. When he opened the door and saw her, he showed no surprise. He simply stepped aside to let her in. The apartment was clean and organized. On the shelf, Vivian saw a photo of a beautiful woman and a girl of about 8 years old. The family he lost. I came to apologize, Vivian said, her voice weak. A real apology. Not because I was found out. But because I was wrong. Nathan remained silent. I've read Richard's letter so many times I've memorized every word, she continued. He loved you. And I was unable to see what was right in front of me. She took something from her purse. A thick envelope. This is for you. Your share of the company. Richard left instructions in his will, but the lawyers could never find you. It's 12 years of dividends. Millions of dollars. Nathan looked at the envelope but didn't take it. I didn't come for money, Vivian. I know, she said, tears returning. But it's yours by right. Richard wanted you to have it. She placed the envelope on the table. And there's one more thing. Vivian took a deep breath. I'm going to donate half of my fortune to the foundation Richard wanted to create. The one you two planned together. Housing for low-income families. Nathan finally looked her in the eyes. I remember, he said softly. It was his dream. It was both your dream. Vivian wiped her tears. Let me make it happen. For Richard. And maybe to start redeeming myself for what I did. Silence hung between them for a long moment. Then Nathan nodded. Just once. Richard would be happy. Vivian let out a sigh that seemed to carry years of weight. A year later, the Carter Ashworth Foundation inaugurated its first housing complex in Brooklyn, in the exact same neighborhood where 2 young friends had started a dream decades ago. Nathan was at the ceremony. This time, not as a gardener. Not as a ghost. But as the man he had always been. Vivian was there too. Different. Quieter. More humble. Working as a volunteer at the foundation she helped create. When they met among the crowd, she extended her hand. Thank you, she said simply. For not giving up on me. Even when I deserved it. Nathan shook her hand. Richard believed in you. I just waited for you to find the person he saw. Vivian smiled, her first genuine smile in a long time. That night, Nathan returned to his apartment in New Haven. Still simple. Still modest. He could buy a mansion bigger than Vivian's now, but he didn't want to. He sat in the chair by the window and looked at the photo of his wife and daughter. I kept my promise, he said softly. To Richard. And to you too. I kept being who you always knew I was. Outside, the city glowed. A new life was beginning. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with the peace of someone who knows that true victory isn't destroying those who hurt you, it's remaining whole despite everything. Vivian wanted a joke. She wanted to see the gardener lost among the rich. She wanted to laugh. But life has a strange way of turning the tables. The man she called people like him was the reason for all the fortune she flaunted. And in the end, it was he who taught her the most valuable lesson that no amount of money can buy. People are not defined by the work they do, but by the character they carry. Nathan Carter could have publicly exposed Vivian. He could have destroyed her reputation. He could have demanded every cent that was his by right. But he chose another path. Because the most powerful revenge isn't making someone else suffer, it's becoming someone they could never have imagined. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who found out too late who you really were? Remember, the people who look down on you today may be the same ones who'll need to look up tomorrow. The difference is that you'll have chosen who you want to be.